but we've got the wonderful Matt Slomka, who's going to be taking us through it all. Good evening to you, Matt, over there in Chicago.
Hey, good morning, Higgsy. How you doing?
Doing good, bud. Doing real good. We've got two sessions today. So hello to those who are attending the second session. This is session one, and what we're going to be doing is doing a bit of theory first. I'll bring up the agenda slide. I've got it here. We're going to be
Wasn't
doing a bit of
prepared for theory. Oh dear.
Well, we can't just jump into the tools just yet. We've got to be able to make sure that we set the scene. Oh dear.
Right.
We've all been cowboys at some point and just jumped on and done it live. But no, we want to make sure that we understand why we're doing this, what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and the importance around what does this mean for your customers. So we'll do a little bit of theory first around what is AOSP, device management, and what does it mean for device administrator, what does it mean for company portal, etc. And then what we'll do is we'll jump right into the actual configuration. So again, we're going to go hopefully a little bit slower, so to make sure that those that are going to be following along with us, you can obviously go through that. For those that are watching the recording, hello. We will make sure that this session is recorded, and if you need to come back and reference it at all, we'll also put it on the Teams Rooms Tech Talk channel, where you can access it if you need to break down the steps for how do we actually do this. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, Matt.
Sweet. Yeah, let's hop in. Do you want me to take control, or are you rolling with it here?
Jump in. Yeah, go for it.
All right. So want to take some time today to talk about what is AOSP device management. So AOSP device management, you'll sometimes hear as just AOSP in abbreviation. You may still see some legacy things referring to it as NGMS, depending on what you see and where you see it. At the end of the day, AOSP stands for the Android Open Source Project. That is the operating system and platform that all Teams Android devices are built on. So everything from your Poly X30s, your Cisco boards, your Yealink phones, your anything and everything in between, all of that runs AOSP in some fashion, and Teams devices are layered on top of it. What Intune now offers is what's called AOSP device management. It is labeled as AOSP DM in most scenarios. This is what the Intune team wrote to manage Android devices that don't have Google stuff on them. So that NGMS nomenclature I mentioned very briefly earlier is non-Google management services. So this is quite literally managing anything that doesn't have the Google versions of Android on them. So, your phones in most places have Google services on them, not all places though, and most non-mobile device platforms don't have any of the Google services on them. So how do you manage those devices? AOSP device management is Microsoft and the Intune team's answer to managing those devices in Intune. This is replacing Android Device Administrator, which was the legacy way to manage Android devices that didn't have Google stuff on them. So we will be using AOSP device management to do this manageability. And then I get a lot of questions from customers of, hey, why aren't you using Android Enterprise? That's what we use for our mobile devices. We want that to use to manage our rooms. Answer is we can't, because that is written by Google and requires all the Google services on them. So you see the catch-22 that we kind of run into there. So instead, we have created our own service. It will manage both Teams devices and other non-Google Android Teams devices as well. So HoloLens and some of the VR headsets of the past have been managed in it, and you'll see that portfolio grow over time. Same space, there is no license changes required. So the same Intune license that you got to use Android Device Administrator in Intune is the exact same Intune license that comes with all of everything that then offers it to you with Android Device Management or AOSP Device Management instead. And last but not least, this is not MDEP. So this is not Microsoft taking over the AOSP thing and Microsoftifying it, for lack of a better word for it. Mm-hmm. This is just AOSP device management as an MDM methodology to Intune enroll the devices. Now, it is important to note that MDEP uses this also.
Yeah, I was going to say, we actually had we had the MDEP team do our last masterclass, and we actually went through and had Yoav take us through what is MDEP all about and what does it mean for Teams devices and so on. So one of the things that was obviously highlighted is that everything MDEP has done is built around AOSP, they are two completely different things. One is an operating system versus obviously what we're going to be learning about today around MDEP and device management. So definitely don't confuse the two. Regarding the licensing, Matt, one of the things that we get asked all the time is, well, I've got a Teams Rooms device. It's got a basic license. That doesn't include Intune. So if I'm using the basic license and I've got, say, 10 meeting rooms all using the basic license, do I need to know about this?
So for those that only have the basic license and don't have any other devices deployed, no other Teams devices at all, you don't have to do anything here. So any devices that don't have an Intune license assigned to them will not try to enroll in Intune. You don't need to build the configuration policy. You don't need to do anything today. Those devices also won't be enrolled with the legacy Android device administrator platform either. When you sign into a Teams Android device for the first time, one of the first things we do is go, is Intune assigned to this account or not? If the answer is no, there's no Intune license assigned, then we don't proceed through Intune enrollment, and we just go through the rest of the sign-in process without any of the Intune bits.
Fantastic. Now, good call out. All right, let's push on.
Sure. All right. So then, next biggest thing. Why? Why would you want AOSP device management? Why wouldn't you want to just turn off the Intune license on your devices and roll without Intune configured on the devices? Well, so there's kind of a couple of reasons why we're going down this Intune path to begin with here. A couple of different bits for why, both in a why are we doing Intune at all, and then why specifically AOSP device management. So Intune from a platform perspective is intended to give us a security posture of the devices. So if you roll without the Intune story, we don't know if that device has been modified. We don't know what patch level that device is at. We don't know if that device is compliant with your organization's policies. Those things only work if you've got the devices enrolled in Intune. If you're not worried about that, that's a different story. There is also config coming in the future and some future benefits that I can't talk about here yet that will also land with this Intune journey. The Intune manageability story on the devices is fairly lightweight today, but we will continue to advance that over time. From a overarching, why are you guys doing this AOSP device management thing instead of sticking around with the Android device administrator story or going to Android Enterprise? One being this is more stable than device administrator. We are also updating this. Android Device Administrator hasn't been updated, maintained, or matured by anybody in the Android open source world since about Android 10, and you've started slowly seeing feature set drop off over time. Right. It's still there, it still functions, but it hasn't matured, it hasn't grown, it hasn't advanced like Google has with, say, Android Enterprise and the capabilities you can do there. In order for us to be able to take over control and innovate on the platform, we had to build our own solution to be able to do that. So this is that journey there and what you're seeing from that side. And then at the same time, why not Google Android Enterprise? A couple of different reasons for that. Largely, Android Enterprise requires Google stuff on the devices. And second being, because all of our devices are just AOSP, we don't have to worry about challenges of places where you can't deploy devices with Google services on them. So in turn, this is the easier story for us, and it gives us a little bit more control over the operating system layer as well.
For sure. I think Jose's already throwing some comments in the chat. We can pump out certificates to AOSP endpoints, root certificates, and access to on-prem resources.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things you can do when they're enrolled in Intune that you can't do if they're not enrolled in Intune is deploy certificates today. It's one of a couple of configurations that are possible through Intune at the moment.
If there are questions, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll be reading them out as we go. As we do have we're a bit flexible with our time today. We've got obviously a 2-hour window, but as Matt was saying with his testing, we don't necessarily need as much time for the actual deployment, but we'll see how we go. All right, so let's talk architecture changes, Matt. So obviously, let's
Sure.
take us through the sign in, the registration flow after obviously a device. Well, sorry, let's go through the current state, and then we'll talk about what the future state looks like.
I like it. So today on any Teams Android device, like you see the examples on the left side there, every Teams device today, you start with the company portal app as the sign-in page, the authentication page that you're greeted to when a device comes up at Ubi. What does that experience look like, and what's actually happening behind the scenes? And it just helps to kind of set the stage for what and how do we function today versus what and how we'll function in the future. So the company portal app, step one is you're going to put in credentials, be it locally on the device, be it at microsoft.com/device login. In one fashion or another, you're going to input credentials into the device that are valid for your organization, go through your federated identity provider. If it's a user account with user interactive MFA, go through that user interactive MFA flow, whatever might make sense for your organization and for the use case for that device. At which point those credentials get handed off from the company portal app and it goes to Enter ID. And it goes, hey, is this a valid set of credentials? Did it pass whatever conditional access policies I've assigned to it? If yes, awesome. And it hands off to step 3 and kind of step 4. And the reality is those are kind of together, but they do happen in disparate steps. So they're called out separately here. So step 3 is if there's an Intune license assigned to that account, we are going to do what is known as a Enter ID registration. It is also known as a workplace join. So depending on which nomenclature and where you're seeing it, you may see it referred to in either fashion. That's why you see the WPJ abbreviation there. And then in step 4, we're going to do a enrollment request to Intune. Intune is going to hand back a yes, you can enroll and allow that device to enroll. At which point today, that device is enrolling using Android Device Administrator because that's what the company portal app supports. And it will do that enrollment with the operating system keys that go along with it. And that device will then be MDM enrolled into Intune. Once all of that loveliness has happened, the company portal app goes off to the Teams app and says, hey, there was a successful sign-in. Here's your sign-in token that you need in order to be valid. That goes off to our MSAL library to actually authenticate into Teams, and you're off to the races, and you have a successfully signed in Teams device in whatever fashion that might be.
So, Matt, you're going to be taking us through the process in just a moment for what an AOSP device will be going through. But just on this, company portal app is going to go away. That's going to be uninstalled from the actual device when it goes through its firmware upgrade. And so what does that mean for company portal app? Does that mean that do any other devices on a customer's network still be leveraging company portal app?
Yes, so there's still quite a few different devices probably leveraging the company portal app today. The company portal app is what you do Intune enrollments with for Mac devices today. So there's a series of different devices. I think iOS devices also still enroll using the company portal app. So there's a slightly different set of configurations for this use case in specific. What you're going to see happen is, and as we get into the architecture changes, what you end up seeing instead here is we replace the company portal app with the Authenticator app and what we call the AOSP app. And these two apps are, the Authenticator app is exactly what you would expect on your mobile device. It is a very, very similar version of that app. Some slight modifications to run on the Teams Android devices, but otherwise, same device, same bits there. And then the AOSP app was written specifically to support the Teams Android devices in this scenario here.
Nice. Okay, so we can see that obviously the big change is a lot of it is happening through the Teams app now, and that's primarily doing a lot of the so the actual end user experience. Now, if I was sorry, when I say end user, I mean the actual installer. When they're going through and they're signing a device in, you know how you get prompted with obviously device, go to microsoft.com/device login and they put in the code that's on the device. Is that experience going to be different for them if it's on AOSP to that of a device that was previously using Device Administrator?
So the end user facing experience on the device is no different. So you get that same page, that same ask for a device code that you can enter at microsoft.com/device login. All of that page looks the same. That page is actually a Teams app page. What then happens in the background after you go through that initial prompt is today the company portal app will tomorrow be the authenticator app. Looks almost exactly the same, is fairly transparent from a configuration perspective. And no one from an end user perspective is going to notice. The page is just a little bit different as it goes through its little progress bars, but the login user interactive page and the end result when it's over are identical. The intermediary looks ever so slightly different, but no end users are going to notice that. And then from a actual login flow perspective, the device Microsoft.com/device login capability is still there. That still works. The remote provisioning in TAC still works. All of that still functions the exact same way. The only thing that changes is the Microsoft.com/device login page does not support user interactive MFA. So if you have end users that need to hit an approve button on their phone somewhere during the sign-in flow, they need to do that sign-in from the device itself, because that's where the MFA prompt appears, because the authenticator app. Above and beyond that, though, everything else functions the exact same way. If you don't require user interactive MFA and you're using some other authentication token or authentication secondary factor for, say, protecting a shared device that's hung on a wall somewhere, all of that still works through the device login page, so you can do remote sign-in and things like that.
Okay, fantastic. So remote sign-in, as you said, that's still all good. Obviously, going to the provisioning side, and in Teams Admin Center, we upload all your MAC addresses and so forth, and creating provisioning codes. All of that is still the same because it's done through the app.
Precisely. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And then, do you want me to walk through the architecture here and kind of explain the steps as we roll through? All right.
For sure. Let's do it.
So, exact same experience again. You start with step one, sign in. That one's pretty straightforward. You put in your credentials, same page as you do before. But now the unique part is the Teams app actually hands off to the authenticator app instead of the company portal app. You still see that same authentication step, that same Entra ID registration step. So those steps are the exact same, where it'll show up an Entra ID as a device, and you'll see the authentication into that resource account that's signing into that device in the sign-in logs. So no change to any of that. But then comes back to the Teams app. The Teams app then goes off to the AOSP app and goes, hey, I want to enroll this device. That app then reaches out to Intune and does the MDM enrollment bits, and then goes back to the Teams app and goes, hey, successful MDM enrollment. We are now enrolled with AOSP Device Management. And then that last piece actually hands off to the Device Management app. And the reality is, this device management app I need to put in the other architecture sheet too, because that device management app doesn't change at all. That is the admin agent spot that you see in Teams Admin Center. That happens on both devices, and I need to just add that to the other architecture page because that one doesn't change at all. I think I've done this deck and this architecture slide many times in presentations, and I think every time I look at it, I go, I really need to put that on the other slide, and then I don't. So one of these days I'll put that on the other slide, but I have not done so yet.
I've got a bit of a curveball question for you. So when a Teams Rooms on Android device can be managed through the Pro Management portal, if and when that happens, so that's full management through the Pro Management portal. Does anything here change?
No. So nothing there changes. Everything that you see there stays the same. That device management app will talk to the Pro Management portal as well.
Yeah, perfect. All right, no, that's good to know. Good to know. All right, let's go through the process. Let's talk about the actual migration and
Sure.
and go through and highlight some of the steps that are required.
All right, let's talk through it. And actually, there's a question in the chat I want to hit on first.
Sure, go for it.
So there's a question in the chat of, isn't the Microsoft.com/device login being blocked by Microsoft? We are rolling out a by default block for the device login page. This is a IT provider manageable config in a customer tenant or in an end user tenant that you can allow or deny based on what makes sense for your organization. The intent with blocking it is to block scenarios where end users get asked to just go to those pages and type in codes over the phone. So for most scenarios, it does typically make sense to disable and block that scenario. In this scenario where you actually want to use it to sign in on devices, and particularly on devices where there isn't an end user the ownership of it, and there's an IT provider that knows not to do that, then that risk gets cut down quite a bit. But that is a thing. It is manageable, it is controllable, etc. So,
good call out.
Yep. And then now getting on to what does the actual migration of these things look like? Because, hey, you've got them all enrolled, you've got devices deployed today. What does that journey look like? So we have done the best that we can to make this as seamless as possible from a migration perspective. There's a couple of different parts to do this migration, and we're going to walk through all of them here today and ideally do a demo using my Cisco Board Pro that's in my guest bedroom to be able to demonstrate what this actually looks like and what is this migration story. But at the end of the day, what's happening is there is a new firmware that's being released for each Teams Android device, except for some exceptions that we'll get to later on here. Except for those, that contains the new AOSP Management agent and the Authenticator app. Those new devices and, new apps are going to be dropped onto the device with a firmware update, at which point that device is going to go through a migration where it's going to take its authentication context and re-enroll itself in Intune using AOSP device management and stay signed in, with a couple of caveats to it that I'll get through here as we go through the flow. So what does that entail from an IT admin perspective in order to ensure that this is successful? Step one, just like you had to do for Android Device Administrator, where you had to allow enrollment into your tenant, you have to create an enrollment profile that allows these devices to enroll. The workflow looks ever so slightly different than the old workflow for Android Device Administrator, but the activity and the action is very, very similar. Step two, and this one isn't a requirement. It is dependent on the organization and what the organization has configured today. But if the organization has it configured today, they need to configure it for the tomorrow state. And what that is a AOSP compliance policy and any configuration profiles that you might be using. So if you're checking to say, is that device rooted today in Android Device Administrator and marking it compliant, you would also want to do that for AOSP device management. And so you create a new compliance policy. And then last but not least, any configuration profiles, as was mentioned in the chat. If you're pushing down configurations to deploy certificates, for instance, to a device, that is something you'll want to continue to do in AOSP device management. You'll want to build a configuration policy to deploy certs, or if you want to, say, block screen capture or other things like that, you can do so as well. Once you've got the baseline done,
I was going to say, Matt, you've got situations where obviously customers are going to have these policies in place. Now, the thing we want to call out is that when you first create a policy, the first thing you're asked is what platform is it going to be? Is it going to be device administrator, or is it going to be AOSP? That's the very first question you get asked when you create a compliance policy or an enrollment profile, etc. And so all the existing ones that are currently in place today for your customers are more than likely configured for device administrator. So what we have to do is basically, as best we can, reflect the settings that are configured for those enrollment profiles, compliance and conditional access policies, and replicate those configurations. But again, when we create the first, when we actually create the object, the first thing you're asked is, which platform, and you select AOSP. I know Matt's obviously going to go through it in a lot more detail, but it's not just a simple matter of, here are your existing policies, just add AOSP to it. It doesn't work like that. It's the policies built on the platform that you select.
No, and that's really important to hit on. These are a unique set of policies that you need to make per different device enrollment platform and device enrollment config. And then from a enrollment policy perspective, you create a unique enrollment policy that is AOSP device management specific. You can create multiple AOSP device management policies. However, you can only create one Teams device specific enrollment policy. So if you need to create one to, say, enroll a HoloLens, you can create that entirely separate from Teams devices. But if you need one for Teams devices, there's one enrollment policy for all Teams devices.
Helps with the question in the chat there. All right.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch them as I go. So, and then once you're Intune administrator, if you've got separate folks in the organization, one that does Intune, one that does Teams, awesome. When you do that, you can then, as a Teams admin or whoever the Teams admin is, install the update on your devices that is for AOSP. So you'll see it as an available update in Teams Admin Center. You'll be able to go through and deploy that update to the devices. Today, all firmware updates for AOSP have been released as a manual update. So in Teams Admin Center, there is not an automatic update currently in flight for any of these devices. So all you'd have to do is go into Teams Admin Center, select that update, click update. It'll install, deploy, test, make sure it works, make sure your migration worked. All of those things happened. Your device, when you do that upgrade, should remain signed in. It should migrate seamlessly in the background and remain signed in. You should be good to go and off to the races. There are a couple of scenarios where your device may sign out. If you have user interactive MFA configured on a device, we can't go get a new enrollment token without doing MFA, at which point we fail to sign in, and your end users, if it's on a desk phone, will have to sign back in again. If it's any other device you shouldn't have, or a shared space device, you shouldn't have user interactive MFA configured on that account. You should have some other secondary factor for MFA, at which point that device should seamlessly sign in because we can retrieve a valid auth token and do that sign in. The other scenario where we have seen devices sign out is if you have a compliance policy required and require that device to be marked compliant and don't configure a compliance policy, which is why I kind of harped on it earlier and why I'll harp on it again in a little bit. But if you require the device to be marked compliant and you don't assign a compliance policy to the device won't be marked compliant and it will sign out. Those are typically the scenarios at which point you can and can't enroll. Or you just won't get a seamless sign in. Yeah.
So what you're saying there is, in the situation like I'm looking at, I'm just reading the question that John's put in the chat, whereby they've created the config profile, they've created the enrollment profile, but there potentially might be a compliance policy that is blocking that device from signing in because it's expecting it to be marked as compliant. So they've done the AOSP migration, they've done the enrollment profile, but there's something there that might be blocking that from signing in, which is associated with the compliance policy.
Potentially. Yeah, that could be the scenario. Or it actually hasn't migrated to AOSP if it's specifically mentioning device administrator, or someone may have downgraded a firmware or something like that. There's a couple of scenarios that you could have hit in that scenario.
Yeah, for the device to actually say the device isn't enrolled into device administrator, that would imply that the firmware has not been applied, because only company portal knows about device administrator. And if it's gone through the firmware upgrade, then the company portal shouldn't be there, and it's going to try and obviously sign in with obviously the new architecture, and should not be providing that error.
Correct. That would be my expectation. Yeah. For instance, the screenshot there in the chat doesn't have the authenticator or AOSP device management agents in it, so that device is still expecting to enroll using device administrator.
Yep.
Alrighty. And so then here's a visual representation of what does that actual migration and update path look like. So similar steps and similar conversation, what I already kind of talked through, but whoever the Intune administrator is for the organization goes and creates their enrollment profile and any compliance or configuration policies needed for that device. The update is then made available in Teams Admin Center for those devices. The Teams admin pushes out that update to a device. that device is going to download that firmware update from Teams Admin Center. And then it is going to upgrade itself and install the new apps. It is going to enroll using AOSP device management. That device should again remain signed in and be ready to use. It's fairly straightforward. It is a fairly quick configuration and a fairly quick migration. We have released the firmware now for 30-ish devices, I believe was the count. So there is quite a few different devices in market today that are all ready to go.
Fantastic. All right, let's look at in the device management enrollment profiles.
Sure. Yeah, so let's actually look at what does that look like from a practicality perspective. We'll walk through screenshots here of what these configurations look like, and then we'll actually do a demo and I'll show creating the enrollment policy in my tenant and what does all of that look like. I've got a brand new tenant that I spun up and set up just a device signed in today. So nothing special, nothing new, and we're going to go through it from beginning to end.
Love it.
So
thank you.
But with that, what does it look like in just screenshots to start? As an Intune admin, you're going to go into Intune Admin Center. You're going to go to Devices, and then you're going to go to Android Devices, and then go to Enrollment. At which point you'll be taken to a page that gives you a series of different enrollment options for Android devices. There'll be a whole bunch of Google Enterprise stuff. There'll be some Android Device Administrator stuff, and then some AOSP Device Management stuff. In particular here, we want AOSP Device Management. And we are going to specifically use the corporate-owned user-associated devices option because all of these devices are going to enroll with accounts that are user-associated because they are all user accounts somewhere. So that will be the important piece to this. They apply to user and shared device accounts that are resource accounts that behave like users. There is a single enrollment profile targeted to all Teams Android-based devices. And what you're going to see is there is a Teams devices toggle on the policy. So we worked with the Intune team. We made it as easy as we possibly could. You're going to give the policy a name. You're going to toggle on the for Teams devices section. And then last but not least, there is a token expiration date. This token is the enrollment token. So if you want devices to only be able to enroll for the next 5 days, you can set the enrollment token for 5 days. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't prevent devices from doing other things in your tenant. It doesn't allow an end user to enroll their personal mobile device using this capability. This is Teams device specific with a set of very unique configurations for Teams devices. So what we recommend is the 65-year token, which is the default option when you go to create this enrollment profile. What that allows you to do is just enroll devices. And ideally, we're all talking about something else in 65 years. So this doesn't become a enrollment problem in the future when you can't install new devices. So with that, it is very straightforward. You create the one policy and you build it out in your tenant. Teams devices then automatically use that policy at sign-in. So other two pieces of what you're able to do from a configuration perspective then in Intune as an IT admin. Step one would be creating a compliance policy. In the same Intune admin portal, instead of enrollment, you're going to select compliance policies, at which point you're going to go to create a compliance policy. And as Higgsy mentioned earlier, one of the first steps that you see is you get to pick the dropdown for platform. And there will be 3 different options there. The one that we want is AOSP. So we're going to select that one. And then you get a series of different compliance policies that you can set for your organization based on what you think is important and what your security team deems important from a compliance perspective for your devices. And then you can assign that to a group of devices or a group of user accounts on those devices.
Nice. Oh, that's good. That's good. All right, let's talk supported devices. Obviously, you've kindly gone ahead and actually shared with us a list of the certified and supported Teams Rooms devices. It's not just Teams Rooms that we're talking about. Obviously, what we're going through today also applies for Teams panels, as well as also Teams phones and displays. So if you are looking for the up-to-date current list, and again, this obviously changes when more devices get certified. The link on the screen here for Teams Rooms, as well as also the devices are available for you as well. But what about, Matt? What about those devices that are not supported? And what are the deadlines for this? Greg's actually got a question in the chat. What deadlines are we working to that will break devices that have not yet enrolled into AOSP? So 2 parts of the question there. Let's talk about not supported devices, and then we'll address Greg's question.
Okay, so not supported devices. There's a small subset of devices. Most of them are nearing their end of life in one fashion or another that won't be moving to AOSP device management. These will continue to work on device administrator. They will continue to function on device administrator while device administrator continues to be available. At such point that device administrator is no longer available from an Intune perspective, a message center post will go out, at which point you will need to disable the Intune license on those devices and unenroll if you want those devices to continue to function with Teams. Ideally, we're timing all of this well enough that there's very little impact there, and those devices are already end of life and end of support. So we're doing the best we can to try to map all of that out from a supportability perspective. There's some partnership between OEMs and us to make sure that that happens. So doing the best we can there. But if there's a situation where one of the devices that's say on this page here, most of these are already end of life in one fashion or another. Some of these devices have been end of life for several years now. But if one of these devices happens to still be used in your organization and is still functional, it will continue to work on Android Device Administrator for the time being, and in the future, if it is not supported anymore, they will be end of life and so on. You'll be on to some new devices from there. And then for the question of, are there deadlines that we're working towards that will break devices that haven't been enrolled with AOSP yet? Our target is to get this migration done this year. There will be announcements for when we switch to automatic updates for devices. That will happen this calendar year. So if you have not deployed any AOSP device management updates yet, now is the time to get prepared, because we are going to finish the manual update releases for all of these devices, at which point we're going to start looking towards switching to automatic updates. The specific date for that will be announced ahead of time in Message Center posts, but we need to get off of Android Device Administrator from a supportability perspective. It's not there, so we need to move and move faster. So we are working through that as soon as we can, but we are doing this in a careful and cautious way. We are rolling out the updates manually first to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to test and ensure that their configurations are ready or has time to work through those challenges prior to us automatically updating their endpoints.
I did notice that in Teams Admin Center, there's already messages being flagged when you've got AOSP devices. I'll read the actual message. So if I look at Teams Rooms on Android, then it's popping up saying Android devices are obviously going to be where is it? Bring it up again. It's identified for me where a device is running firmware that is non-AOSP, and that AOSP updates are available, and also highlights that it is a manual update at the moment, should you need to obviously migrate.
And for those that have not created an AOSP enrollment profile, but the device is licensed with Intune and is currently enrolled with Android Device Administrator, if we apply an automatic update to that device will sign out. So now is the time to get your enrollment profiles created. With that, are we ready to do some demo, or did I miss a question?
There was a question relating to that Microsoft.com/device login. Where do you allow for that to be used?
So today it's allowed by default across everything. Microsoft is deploying a policy that will be opt-in or opt-out, I forget which, in conditional access. So it would be a change in a conditional access policy that Microsoft is adding to organizations' tenants.
Perfect. No, good to know. And there was one more question. Can an AOSP enrollment profile be used to enable enterprise Wi-Fi with certificate-based authentication via Intune?
Maybe. Depends on what type of certificates you need.
Good point. Cool. All right. We will pause on the questions there. Let's jump into the actual configuration. So I'll stop putting, I'll turn the slides off and then get you to share your screen, Matt. Again, for those who are looking to do this along with us, and now's the time to obviously switch over to your tenant. Have that on, if you've got two screens, have the tenant on one screen and have us on the other screen. And we'll otherwise, feel free to leverage this recording and follow along at a later stage.
Sounds like a plan. So hopefully everybody is seeing M365 Admin Center now in my new demo tenant. So this is a brand new tenant. All I did was set it up and create a conference room account with a Teams Rooms Pro license on it. And I enrolled the device into the tenant. It is in Intune and it is in Teams Admin Center. So I'm going to show you Teams Admin Center here. So if I go to Teams Admin Center and go to Teams Rooms on Android, what you're going to see here is my conference room Baker account here with my Cisco Board Pro signed in. So when I look at the Cisco Board Pro here, it is a Board Pro 55. It shows as a non-urgent health status. And if I go to health here, what you're going to see is there's a firmware update available for this device. But what I also want to call out, very important, is there's that Teams admin agent we talked about earlier. Here's the firmware. Here's that company portal app we talked about earlier. And then the two other apps that are on here that are worth just sharing because I'm showing the screen is the OEM agent. This is the OEM specific manageability agent running on that device. So each OEM's device will have a different version build number there. So a Cisco device is going to have that build number. A Poly device would have a different one. A Yealink one would have a different one, and so on and so forth. And then you'll see the Teams app. In this case, this is the Teams Rooms on Android app running on this device. So that's what's available for this device right now. There are newer builds of this that would be available, but I've got to get to a newer firmware first. So before I go through and kick off the firmware, well, actually, let me show you that part, and then I'll show you what the Intune part looks like, because it's going to take a couple minutes for the firmware update to actually happen on the device. So rather than us watching paint dry while that happens, I will kick off the firmware update here and then do some more explaining around what some of this looks like. But from a update and availability perspective, if I click here and go see updates, you're going to notice there are no automatic updates scheduled right now for this device. We don't have automatic updates enabled for AOSP firmware. There are no automatic updates available yet. But if I go to manual update, you're going to see the current build that my device is running. I downgraded this device this morning to some random Cisco build that I happen to have laying around. So this one is not one that was ever Microsoft certified, but it is an older build that is running the company portal app. But you're going to notice there's this new build number here from Cisco. It is a version number higher. And you're going to notice this AOSP label at the end. So we put the AOSP label at the end, which helps to call out for folks. But then what we also learned is that that probably wasn't enough guidance. So when I go to check this firmware box here, what you're going to see is significant changes in this update. Check prerequisites for updates ahead of time. So this we wanted to catch, we've got the banner in Teams Admin Center. I've done a bunch of these things. We've had blogs out for a while. We've had message center posts. We've had OEMs doing communications. We've had partners doing communications. We've tried, but we have a lot of customers that use Teams Android devices, all the way from your very small SMBs to your top giant companies. And the odds that someone misses one of those communications is very high. So we tried to catch once again in another scenario here where we go, hey, check the prerequisites. When you click on this, what this takes you to is the Learn documentation that walks you through step by step, creating your enrollment profile. And it's the same screenshots that were in the slides we were just looking at earlier, creating your configuration policy, creating your compliance policy, step by step, what I'm about to walk through here visually, just in a Learn document that is just line by line by line. What do you need to do to be successful? You'll see that as we go through here. But assuming you've checked those prerequisites already, you can tap that update button. Now, I'm not going to tap the update button yet because I haven't created my new enrollment profile yet. And if I'm too slow in talking, this will update before my enrollment profile is created, at which point then it will sign out and I will ruin our lovely demo here. So I don't want to do that yet.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
That's what this looks like in Teams Admin Center. Before I go any further and put on my Intune admin hat for a second, Higgsy, anything that you think I missed from the Teams admin side of the house?
Yeah, so I was just going to explain that Matt's doing a scenario where the device has already been deployed. My device has not been deployed. So if I went to Teams Admin Center, I wouldn't see my device in there. So this is a brand new, I've got a Yealink A10 device, and I'm taking it out of the box and I'm installing it. And if I know that it doesn't have the AOSP firmware because, let's say I purchased it, 4 months ago, and it's been sitting there in a box and it hasn't got the firmware. What I need to do first? Do I need to try and just sign in to the device and do the device login and see how it enrolls? Because remember, I haven't configured AOSP yet inside of my portal. So just as a first step, should I just sign the device in so we actually get the object inside of Teams Admin Center? Obviously, that's going to be using Device Administrator, and then I can do my firmware upgrade.
So today, yes. So today you'll want to enroll that device and under Android Device Administrator, go through the steps, and then do a firmware update in Teams Admin Center, just like you would do for an existing in-place device. You're going to make it an existing in-place device and then do that migration step. But you'll first need to enroll it with Android Device Administrator and then move forward to AOSP Device Management. That is the migration process today. I can mention kind of where we're going in the future too, if you want me to allude to where we're going. I think we have it in the blog. So in the future, there will be what we're calling 0-day updates for Teams Android devices. We released this a while ago for Teams Rooms on Windows devices, where when you first take the device out of the box, it's going to reach out to Teams Admin Center at that Teams screen, and we're going to push down a firmware that is AOSP Device Management specific, so then you won't have to do that hop. The device will boot up, connect to Teams to get to its login screen. When it goes to connect to Teams to get to its login screen, we're going to go, hey, you're running kind of an old build. Here's a new one, and update the device for you. At which point then when you go to that sign-in page, you will just sign in, just like any other device, but it will be an AOSP device management build already, at which point just a net new enrollment happens rather than a migration. From an end user perspective, doesn't look any different than how you do a sign-in today. That story is the same, and it's a fairly easy one from that side, but that would be what a net new device would look like in the future, but I don't have a date to share on it yet.
Fantastic. That's exciting. Just putting some links in the chat.
Some good links in the chat.
Yeah. So we've got the blog, which takes you through the process, and has also got the updated guide of supported devices, and also the migration guide as well. So you can use those at your discretion. All right, let's jump into Intune and start configuring up our enrollment profile.
All right, so now I'm going to go through and I'm going to go into Microsoft Intune here. It's another dropdown in M365 Admin Center, just like Teams is. When I click on Microsoft Intune here, this is going to take me to the Intune Management portal. Inside of the Intune Management portal, we're going to see, I guess I got to approve my MFA request first. So let me go ahead and do that here. And we're going for 53 today. And there you go. Inside of Intune Admin Center here, I am going to go to the devices section, and then I am going to click on Android. You can either click Android here or here, gets you to the same spot. What you're going to see here to start is my Cisco Board Pro. You're going to see it's the Baker room again. You're going to see that it's enrolled with Android and it's enrolled with Device Administrator. You're also going to see what operating system version it has running on it. You're going to see that the device is marked compliant. You're also going to see the last check-in time, and that was roughly 20 minutes ago. And so that device has checked in recently. It's available in Intune. It's available in all of the good places. You can click into here if you want and see other configurations on the device if you wish. You can see the serial number for my Cisco Board Pro if anyone's curious. And you can roll through and see that it's an Android device and what the manufacturer is. You can also see in here device compliance. So you'll see what compliance policies are actually assigned to that device right now. And you can see that there's a default device compliance policy that applies to every single device within an organization. And then there's a unique compliance policy that I created for my devices. So you'll see that as well. Outside of that, the only other thing that I want to show is what does that compliance policy actually look like from a compliance perspective. So when I go to compliance here, you're going to see, again, that default compliance policy that exists for every device in the organization. And then you're going to see my Android Device Administrator specific compliance policy that I created for my organization here. And inside of there, you'll see what compliance policies I have set. I have one specific to the company portal app. I have require encryption enabled. I set a minimum operating system version, and I am blocking rooted devices. That's what's available today from a configuration perspective. That's what I've assigned from a compliance policy perspective as well. So that's just an overview of what I've already done in my tenant. What I now want to do is show what is it like to create this AOSP device management enrollment policy, and how do we go from there? So once you're at the devices pane, as an Intune administrator, you're going to go to the enrollment section. In the enrollment section here, you're going to see several different options. So starting out with the Android Enterprise capabilities, then you're going to see the Android Open Source Project capabilities. That's what we're talking about here today. And you're going to select corporate-owned user-associated devices. And you'll notice here, these are devices built on AOSP without managed Google services. And there's that GMS thing again that I was talking about earlier. There's your Google mobile services. So I'm going to click on corporate-owned user-associated devices. What you're going to see here is a blank list because I have no enrollment policies here today. If you're going into an organization or you're going into a tenant that someone may have created one of these enrollment profiles before, but it's expired because it had a short expiration date for some reason, you're not going to see it in this list by default. It's just going to be blank here. If you turn off this filter here, you will see every policy that was ever created. Again, my tenant is blank, so I have no enrollment profiles or no enrollment policies created. But if someone had created one before and it has expired, if you clear that filter, you'll see all of them. You'll be able to go in and either modify that existing profile or delete it. Just important to catch as you kind of walk through some of these things here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a policy. So when I go to create this policy, I'm going to give it a name. And I'm just going to call this Teams Devices AOSP DM Enrollment Policy. Doesn't need to be that long, doesn't need to be that specific, but I've gone through and created an enrollment policy there. You can give this a description if you want. It is not required. You're going to notice that the token expiration date there is March of 2090. I'm just going to leave that as is because hopefully by 2090, this isn't a problem anymore, and we can talk about something else. But in the meantime, we're going to leave that enrollment profile as is. I'm going to leave Wi-Fi marked as not configured because these devices aren't configurable via Wi-Fi in this fashion, so that isn't a supported functionality. But I am going to turn on this for Teams devices box here because that is required in order for your Teams devices to enroll. If you don't turn that on, devices won't enroll. If you turn this on, other devices can't enroll with it. So this is an important toggle to use. Then I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And then what you're going to see here is just an overview of what you've already created there. And I'm just going to click Create. Now, you cannot scope this enrollment policy. You cannot modify this enrollment policy so that it only applies to certain devices. There are no enrollment restrictions around this policy. This policy applies to the entire tenant. You can have one for the entire tenant, and it automatically marks all devices enrolling with it as corporate devices. So there was a note in the chat of ownership being marked personal under Android Device Administrator. That was how that worked. Android Device Administrator, everything came in as personal by default unless you used corporate device identifiers. We have changed that behavior. Everything that enrolls this way is tagged as corporate owned and comes in as corporate owned because most end users, I'd say 99.999% of end users aren't buying a Yealink phone for themselves to enroll and use within the organization. Those are provided by the org, so they're going to come in as corporate owned. It doesn't change the behavior or functionality like it would for, say, a personal to a corporate device on, say, a mobile phone or something like that instead. Reason being, this, when you mark it as corporate, gives you a totally different set of controls than a Android device or a Teams Android device where you have the same set of enrollment policies there. So that's how that bit works. And then once an AOSP enrollment policy has been created, will non-AOSP devices still enroll and authenticate? Yes. So this does not change anything that isn't an AOSP device management specific device. The app has to be on the device. You have to have done the AOSP firmware update in order for the devices to enroll using this policy. So this has no impact whatsoever on an organization if you've not actually deployed any Teams AOSP device management devices yet. That is a lot of words right there. So you have successfully created your enrollment policy. If you don't have any compliance requirements in your organization or any configuration policy requirements in your organization, you're good to go. You're done. You can create this. You can just go into Teams Admin Center now and click the update button here on your device and schedule that update. I'm going to go ahead and click that so that we can get that part rolling here. And you'll see that my update has been queued. If I go to the history here, you're going to see that my software update was queued. You're also going to see that I did an update to the Teams app earlier in here. But you're going to see that my firmware update is queued and sitting in Teams Admin Center ready to go. While that is queued and while that is rolling, I am going to continue talking through the Intune bits of the configuration just so that we can kind of keep both things going at once so that you're not sitting here waiting 10 minutes while I just wait for firmware updates to happen. So
there was one question I got for you, Matt.
Sure.
Is
Yep.
So you updated, let's say you've got a board device. So technically it's a touch console and MTR in one. What about for those devices that have a separate Android touch console? Do we have to follow the same process? Do we have to update each of those individually, or can I just update the MTR on Android and it's going to do the touch console? Because we see this all time and time where people have done one but haven't done the other.
Yes. So in my specific scenario here where I've only got the board product, I picked an easy one where I've only got one device. So I only do one firmware update. For other devices, if you're doing something like my Poly X30 with my TC8 behind me here, which we haven't GA'd the firmware updates for those guys yet, those you need to do both updates independently. There is not a problem from a functionality or pairing perspective. If one device is running one app and the other is running the other one, we actually made sure that pairing works between the two, but you do want to update both devices simultaneously. So do your updates for your console or your bar or whatever at the same time, just so that you've got your devices in one consistent state. But you do have to do those as two separate pieces in Teams Admin Center.
Perfect. So I'm just checking now. My device has signed in.
How's yours going?
Mine's yeah. Both devices have signed in. Everyone's happy.
Sweet.
So now I'm looking at the firmware, and it says that I've got a firmware update that needs to be done, and it actually. Okay, this one actually needs to do a double hop. So this one has to update to a newer version, which has Company Portal, because it even says Company Portal. I'm going to put it in the chat just so that people can see. And then it's going to allow me to go one step further. So
I'm glad to see we've got the step upgrades working in TAC correctly for you, though. So you'll get to the current build that that does the prep to then do the full migration.
Exactly. So again, if you've got a device that's been sitting on the shelf for a little while, you go through, you've signed it in, it's going to offer you obviously firmware upgrades that it needs to do first. So it's going to go, I've now kicked it off and it's doing the update from September last year. And then that's going to allow me to go to AOSP after that.
That's awesome. Well, we'll let yours bake at the same time mine is.
Yeah, exactly. I'm cooking mine at the same time. I'm just seeing there was a question in the chat. Can we view the update history in Pro Management Portal?
Not yet.
Cisco is on point with AOSP. My PolyX still pending. So I believe, like you said, the X series, some of them are in beta still, so not quite launched just yet. What device profile are currently supported using AOSP configuration policy? Example, is the Wi-Fi profile supported?
Well, that is a great question, and we call out exactly what is supported from a configuration policy perspective directly in our Learn article here. So in the Learn article, the only configuration policy that we fully support today is the block screen capture across all platforms. Any other configurations, check with your OEM to see if they're supported. Some OEMs do and some OEMs don't support different functionality above and beyond that. The only one that's supported across all devices, though, is block screen capture. So for Wi-Fi or other configurations, that is OEM specific.
Nice.
And then just because there were a bunch of comments on timelines and stuff, just showing that the blog post has line by line by line what OEM, what firmware, and what device is being shipped, and which ones have the AOSP firmware available already, and what is our estimated ETAs for devices that don't yet. So you'll see Logi here and Neat are coming in April. You'll see Poly, we're targeting the phones in March and the rooms in April, and so on and so forth through the rest of the devices here. But we tried to call out every single device line by line. That way it was easy to catch and find those questions and answers along the way. And this whole blog post is a wealth of different information with Q&As and things like that in it as well. And I'll drop that in the chat in case someone hasn't seen it yet.
Nice.
With that said, I think we should spend a little bit of time covering the compliance policies instead in Intune. So we've created our enrollment policy for Android device, AOSP device management. Now that we've created our enrollment policy, the devices can enroll with AOSP DM. However, if your organization has an Intune conditional access policy that requires the device be marked compliant, this little compliance checkbox here, you need to create a compliance policy for that device, or it won't be marked compliant. At which point, we're going to go to the compliance policies here, and then you're going to see my existing compliance policies that exist for Android Device Administrator, but you'll notice I don't have one for AOSP Device Management today. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to create a policy. And in this drop down here, I have three different options. I have Device Administrator, AOSP, and Android Enterprise. I'm going to select AOSP in this case, and I'm going to click the Create button. So in here, I'm going to do a Teams Devices, and I'm going to do AOSP DM and Compliance Policy. And again, you can name this whatever makes sense for your organization. If you've got some mandated naming scheme across M365 admin centers and policies and things like that, by all means, follow it, put whatever you'd like in there. This is what I tend to follow when I build my demo tenants because it makes sense to me. But doesn't matter what you do there. And then you can put in any description that makes sense if you need some descriptor for kind of what this was created for and why, or maybe you put in change request numbers or things like that in there so that folks can kind of go back and read why you created those policies in the first place. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to hit next, and I'm given options here for what I am able to configure across my devices. Now, AOSP Device Management enrolled Teams devices have a series of different supported compliance policies. So in device health, I can block and mark non-compliant any devices that are rooted and any devices that come back rooted. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to select the block button there. In device properties, there is a minimum OS level and a maximum OS level. If you want to set minimums and maximums, no Teams Android device that is fully supported today is running anything less than Android 10. So I'm going to go ahead and put Android 10 in that box there. If you have all Cisco Board Pro devices running Android 11 today, by all means, you could check that box. If you've got all devices from, say, Jabra that are running MDEP today that are all Android 13, you could put a 13 in there. So based on what operating system version your devices are running in your org, by all means, pick the minimum that's there and anything else that you might want to block. If you want to select a maximum, you can do that as well. We do not support the minimum security patch level option. That is not a supported configuration today. And then from a system security perspective, we don't support the require a password to unlock, but we do support the require encryption of data storage on the devices. So it just depends on which configuration you're trying to do there. And then I see a note in the chat. Some of my clients, I needed to split the Teams panels and MTROA compliance policies due to minimum OS conditions. I would just set to the minimum rather than trying to do that, but whatever makes sense for your organization. It's just a little more challenging to try to do from a configuration and assignment perspective, particularly as you may swap or upgrade different devices. That could become challenging, but by all means, it would be easier to just set a minimum and kind of go forward from there. And then from there, you can decide what happens when a device is non-compliant. So when a device is non-compliant, by default, we just mark the device non-compliant immediately. That one is built in here. You can delay it if you want for one reason or another. If you want the device to fall out of compliance and then wait a couple of days, you can do that. And then above and beyond that, there's some other configurations that you can do here. Sending an email and adding a device to a retired list are both supported. The remotely lock is not a functionality that we support today because we don't support that passcode piece from the last bit there. And then you can assign this. You can assign this to groups. These are Entra ID groups that contain either the user account signed into the device or the device itself when it's workplace joined in Entra ID. You can also add all users if you just want to grab everybody, or all devices. I generally just grab all devices. That way it's every device that's enrolled with AOSP device management only. All of those devices get this compliance policy by default. This compliance policy is pretty light, so it's easy. But if your organization is doing other things with AOSP DM, like say HoloLens, for instance, then you'll need to group this differently or add exclusion groups for one reason or another. You can do that and you can click next. And then this just gives you a review of everything you've created here and documented here. And then on the question of, is there a link describing which options are and aren't supported? Yes, both in the migration guide and we recently updated the supported conditional access and compliance policies Learn doc that is just for all Teams Android devices. You're going to notice a ton of tabs across the top there for Teams Rooms Windows. And then I've got Teams Rooms Android, Teams Phones and Displays, and Teams Panels on AOSP DM, and then another set of them for Android Device Administrator. That way we're maintaining both sets of documentation for those that may be in a mixed state for the moment. And then with that, I'm just going to create my policy here. And now I've got a new compliance policy ready to rock and roll across all of my devices. whenever my device updates. I'm going to go through and refresh the details here. You're going to see now my firmware update is in progress on my Cisco Board Pro. So in the other room, that device is currently updating itself to the newest version. I'm put it in the other room because I want to treat it like a remote device. I want it to be like I'm an IT admin that's sitting in one office and I'm trying to update a device that is somewhere else in the world. What we want for all of our devices for them to be remotely manageable so that you don't have to touch them. So I'm doing the update and it's in the other room because that's about as far as I can put it in my house. But I've moved it across as far away as I can so we can't see it anymore at least. But I can get up and walk over there and take a look at it once we're done and see how we've done. But with that, this firmware update is still in progress. The only other thing that I can hit on here from an Intune admin perspective is that last piece, which is creating the configuration policies for the team's devices using AOSP device management. So we've done a compliance policy. We've created an enrollment policy. Now we can create a configuration policy also. Now you're going to see I don't have any configuration policies in my tenant today, but I could. So if I wanted to, I can go to create and I can go to create a new policy. And this is exactly the same flow as we did for the compliance policies. So I'm going to pick that it's an AOSP device as the platform, and then you'll see a set of options here. Now, review with your OEM if you need to deploy certificates to a device or do Wi-Fi configuration on a device if this is possible from Intune. Each OEM has slightly different configurations for what they've adopted for how they deliver certs into their certificate stores and things like that. So this is something that you'll want to chat through with your OEM. I know several of them support these things, but check with them before you start trying to do any of the more broader configuration capabilities with them. For the sake of this, I'm just going to create a device restrictions policy here. So I'm going to go ahead and click create, and I'm going to go again and call this team's devices and AOSP DM and device restrictions as my naming scheme here. And again, pick whatever naming scheme makes sense for your organization. I'm going to hit next. And then in the options here, there's a series of things that you can block, disable, control in the Android operating system. Following our documentation, the only supported feature we have across every single device is block screen capture. Several other ones of these are also capable of being blocked for various reasons. So again, check with your OEM if there's other restrictions that you're looking to deploy. I'm just going to pick this one because we know it works across all of them and it's easy for our demos here. And then I can assign that, again, just like the compliance policy, to a group of users or devices, all users or all devices. And important to note, again, this only applies if you assign this to, say, all users in your organization. This only applies to an AOSP device management enrolled device by that user. It doesn't apply to their iPhone. It doesn't apply to their Windows laptop or their Android Enterprise managed Android phone. And yes, I have a little bit of everything on my desk here in some fashion for the sake of these conversations. But that gives you the option there. I'm just going to assign it to all devices. In this case, I'm going to click next, review my policy, and click create. At which point now I will have created this policy. If I refresh, it'll pop up right here for us.
So my device is now currently doing its firmware update. So it's in the middle of that at the moment. So looking good there. And I'm not configuring my configuration profile for this one. Let's have a look to see how yours is going. It's still in progress?
Still in progress. Oh,
all right.
So we're getting there. It's at least in progress. That's a good start. I could walk into the other room, but that would be cheating. So we're just going to wait and be patient. We're going to see. We're going to take a look at what it's like. This only takes a couple of minutes generally. The firmware updates are pretty light. And this generally kicks off within 2 or 3 minutes. It's making good progress here. So it was initiated at 7:58 p.m. my time. At 8:07 it actually started. So we're making good progress towards it downloading that firmware update and getting itself ready to go. These are generally a 10 to 15 minutes type thing. Some of the bigger updates can take an hour. I had a customer that moved a Polyphone from version 5 dot something to version 9 dot something. And that one took a little while because I think they jumped an Android release or something in between too. So there's sometimes a series of different steps to get through some of the firmware updates, but we try to make it as painless as possible from a migration perspective.
This one. When you created your compliance policy before, sorry, I think I missed a step. You assigned it to, was it all users or all devices?
I think I assigned it to all devices. That's what I normally do. What did I do here?
Go edit the assignments.
Oh, maybe I didn't click anything.
Okay.
That could be why.
Excellent.
So let me assign that to all devices. See, and that would have been bad. See, if you had let me do this and I had a compliance policy, my device would have signed out, and that would not have made for a good demo. So I'm going to go ahead and save that here, and now it will be assigned to all devices so that it actually applies to the device when the device enrolls.
Perfect.
Good catch. Yes, but what you should see here is that the devices are enrolled. The devices are ready to go from a configuration perspective. And then I can actually log into a different tenant here while we're waiting too. And I can show, I think I have some other devices enrolled in this tenant. So I can show kind of what the final state looks like too. But I got to grab credentials here before I do that. But how's your device making it there, Higgsy?
Yeah, it's still saying firmware updating. Please do not power off. The touch console has not updated yet. So you were talking about
that'll happen second. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned before that they can be one can be on device administrator, the other one can be on AOSP, and so I'm probably going to be testing that in just a moment because AOSP is available for the touch console, but the actual video bar needs to obviously upgrade to a different version before it can go to AOSP. So I'm going to be able to put that to the test with my device.
Testing my ideas and theories here. Uh-oh. That's going to be scary.
Obviously, the end state where we want both touch and MTROA running on AOSP.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. No. Get both to the same state quickly. You'll be in a much better and much more supported state that way.
Off the top of your head, do you know what the heartbeat time between an update and the actual attack?
It's within a couple minutes. That one's pretty quick actually because it reports in itself. So that one's pretty fast when the update's done.
Perfect.
But if I stop sharing my screen here and share a different window, so this is my actual test environment with a whole lot more devices in it. But what you're going to see is a really bad job on my side of doing hygiene. You'll notice a lot of devices that have been, say, expired off since before the new year here. But hey, you can't do everything. So sometimes it takes a little while and sometimes you just don't get around to cleaning stuff up. But what you're going to see here is kind of a mix of different devices in the organization. And you're going to see a series of different firmwares and different devices running. I've got everything from some Logi devices to some Neat devices to some Yealink devices. And I don't think the unreleased devices in the closet right now. So that's not in here. So we're okay. Everything in here is something that exists and has been released thus far. But what you're going to see here is kind of a mix of different devices that have been enrolled with different policies over time. And what you're going to see is actually, this is my Cisco board before I downgraded it this morning to do this demo for y'all. You're going to see that it is enrolled as corporate owned user associated. If I click on it here, you're going to see that same Cisco device. So it's the same Cisco device that was previously enrolled with Android Device Administrator, same serial number, same Board Pro product. but you're going to see that it is enrolled as Android AOSP. This gives me a different set of configuration on it and a different set of policies assigned to it. And then most importantly, what you're going to see is that the device is marked as corporate. So this device came in as corporate associated, and it is now marked as corporate. You can't change it. You can't modify that. That device is a corporate device from a manageability perspective in Intune. And my firmware update is still in flight there. So I do not have a navigator paired to my Cisco Board Pro. I actually don't have I might have a navigator laying around somewhere, but I don't have one yet. At least not configured to it yet. But if you look at, say, a different device here, does one of my colleagues have one? I think these are all phones. Yeah. No, here's a Jabra. Here's a Jabra VBS device. So this one is enrolled with Android AOSP device management today. And this one is also enrolled, and you'll see this one's a Jabra device instead. And I think this is I think this one's on MDEP also. So this one's fully up to date and managed at the same time. It is the MDEP Panicast. Yes.
Panicast 50 and the 40.
That one is running Android 13. I have a desk phone behind me too. Here we go. So my reception phone here behind me. This is my Yealink phone. So I've got a Yealink. What's this? An MP5082 with the wireless little handset guy here, which I think is the coolest thing ever. I don't know what I would do with it. I don't know if I'm going to walk around like this, but it's still kind of fun because I spent an alarming amount of time looking for the cord for this thing when I took it out of the box initially because no one told me it was wireless until I found all the little like FCC warnings and like safety warnings and stuff on the top. And then I was like, oh, look at that. There is that option, but that one is also MDEP managed now because we're working through all of that with our Yealink friends. But that's what it looks like from a Intune perspective on any enrolled devices. From a Teams Admin Center perspective, all of these devices look entirely identical. There is no difference in Teams Admin Center above and beyond. When I get to Teams Admin Center here, you're going to see the different devices under health here. And my firmware update is still in progress. But if I go to my Board Pro prior to me signing it out today or earlier today, and I go to the health tab here, so you're going to see it was offline since earlier today when I removed it and factory reset it. But prior to doing so, it was on the AOSP device management build, and it had the latest and greatest firmware. But most important to note is that it had the Authenticator app and the Intune app instead of what was the company portal app on the prior build. So that is really the only indicator from a end user perspective, etc. Everything else from the physical device itself looks exactly the same. No changes there from a functionality perspective.
Well, I've seen this question quite a few times. Jose has actually thrown it in the chat. Can you update to AOSP via PolyLens, Logitech Sync, Crestron, the web portals? And the answer is yes. However, as we say this with all of the updates, if you do it via Teams Admin Center, that way you can guarantee that the firmware that is being pushed out by the OEM is going to be certified by Microsoft. Otherwise, you'll be in a situation where you saw Matt earlier. He had a firmware on his Cisco device that was not certified by Microsoft that he probably could have pulled from the Cisco's control hub or online somewhere, and that will put you in an unsupported state. Doing updates for the devices via the Teams Admin Center is best practice. Obviously, moving forward, it will be Pro Management Portal, and that will be. But just be wary of that. If you're using something like PolyLens or Logitech Sync and it's saying, yeah, there's a new update that's available, it's okay. Is that update available in TAC as well? And if it isn't available in TAC, go for it. Go for the update. But yes, you will be able to update to AOSP firmwares on the other OEM vendor portals as well.
Yes, most of the OEMs are pushing out their updates, but as Higgsy mentioned, from a supportability perspective, Teams Admin Center is the way to ensure that you're running a supported build delivered in a supported fashion by both the OEM and us. There was a question again in the chat here. Not sure if you touched on it earlier, but if I have a new device in its original packaging and it's running Android Device Administrator, how do I go about getting it updated to AOSP? Today, the answer is you enroll it with AOSP Device Management, which is what Higgsy has just done on his device. And then you go into Teams Admin Center and do the update, at which point it will complete its migration to AOSP Device Management. We will change that behavior in the future. In the future, you'll be able to take the device out of the box. It will identify that it is running an old firmware, update itself, and then allow you to sign in. So you won't have to do the jump from Android Device Administrator to AOSP Device Management. But today, you do need to make that jump, and you can create enrollment profiles and enrollment configurations to allow that enrollment to happen today in your tenant.
Exactly. So again, you've got that stepping stone firmware upgrade that you've got to do. I've like I said, older Teams rooms on Android device, taken it out of the box. First thing I had to do was sign it in with Device Administrator. It was then inside of Teams Admin Center then, and obviously my Intune was already supporting Device Administrator, and now that it's in there, I can go through and I can undo the firmware upgrade, and I've had to upgrade it to a newer version, still with Device Administrator, but now I've been given the option to upgrade it to the next one, which is obviously AOSP. So you, as Matt said, future state, automatic on login and is coming, but yeah, not just yet. So look out for changes there through obviously the blogs, as well as also Teams Admin Center, message boards, message center, and so forth.
And then with that said, my Cisco Board Pro has successfully updated to AOSP Device Management. What you're going to see here now is the Authenticator app and the Microsoft Intune app. And I promise I'm not cheating. If I click the refresh details button here, it did actually complete its update. The history still says that it's in progress because it probably still hasn't fully refreshed. But from the Health tab here, the Authenticator app and the Microsoft Intune app are now shown. And what shows as available is a newer Teams app, Teams Rooms app, because there's a updated Teams Rooms app above and beyond what had already been released before. But I now have the latest and greatest Cisco firmware running on the device from a supportability perspective. I have the AOSP apps on the device, and hopefully what we see when I refresh here, not yet. So not yet, but what you should see shortly is this populate now with a AOSP device management dropdown instead of this device administrator one here. This should take another minute or two to populate, but the device has been seamlessly migrated in the background, and that's probably why this is still showing in progress. But within the next minute or two, that should take place as well. And then everything will be on the latest and greatest build, fully up to date, and in a supported state going forward here.
Does the record in here would replace? Oh no, so you've got, so you've updated the Baker room, yeah? That's what the
Yes.
account that's signed in. Okay, so
Correct.
does this? Will it change this record, or will it add another record underneath?
So you'll end up with a new record underneath that is AOSP device management specific. And then your old one, you'll need to go through and either let it auto retire after however many days if you've got cleanup rules configured in Intune. If not, you can just go through and select the device itself. And and maybe this one has actually migrated itself completely. Of course, I say that and then no. Something's not behaving correctly there. But you can click on a device itself, and then there's a delete icon at the top there that you can do to delete and purge off an old device that hasn't cleaned itself up. I can show you what that looks like here on a different device. So here's a different Teams device in a different tenant, but this device is no longer in use within my organization. I can select it. I can select the delete option and click delete. This will initiate the delete of that device, and I can go through here and delete all the various devices that I haven't done a good job of cleaning up over time. You can delete endpoints in Entra, Intune, and remove from TAC. So you don't have to remove from TAC. The ones in TAC stay the same. So the same object and device management ID is the same in TAC. So you don't have to do that part. But otherwise, the rest of them, you're correct. You can continue to roll through and remove or delete as needed.
And just to reiterate one of the points that Matt made earlier, if obviously you get a firmware and that is already being deployed to the device that is AOSP, and the customer doesn't have pro licenses, they're just using basic licenses, it means that the device won't enroll into Intune, but the actual sign-in process will still initiate. So it's just the corporate enrollment won't take place, but the device will still sign in.
See, and this is making me a liar now. I think we fixed the need to delete the old entries because what you're going to notice here in Intune, and we were supposed to be fixing it, and I didn't think we had, but I believe we have actually now fixed the need to clean up the entries, which is actually awesome. So what you're going to see now is my same Cisco Board Pro, and I promise I didn't delete the old one because you saw I tried clicking on it and through the error, it was doing that. It had deleted itself in the background already.
That's right.
It has unenrolled. And it has re-enrolled with Android open source corporate associated, corporate owned user associated devices, and it is now marked corporate, and it is enrolled with AOSP here. So you'll see Android AOSP in the display name for that device now. Same Cisco Board Pro product, same Cisco Board Pro, same serial number here. If I go to properties, you're going to see that it is marked as corporate now. And then if I go to device compliance here, you're going to see that my new device compliance policy has assigned to that device. So when you click on that, you can now see that this device is compliant with those policies. And it may take a second to replicate the entries there. It takes a little bit in Intune for those things to replicate. But this device has now fully migrated to AOSP device management seamlessly. In the background, I have not touched the device, and I don't have someone in the other room clicking buttons on the device either, I promise. And it is fully migrated end to end. It stayed signed in. It is ready to go from a refresh perspective here. If I click on this, you're going to see that that software update is now successful and shows as successful. That shows as successful. You're ready to go from a device health perspective. You see that the Authenticator and Microsoft Intune apps are there, but you're also going to see that the device is still signed in successfully. Otherwise, this health status here would say signed out rather than the health status being non-urgent just because it has another Teams Rooms app update available for it. But other than that, we're done. We've migrated our device successfully, beginning to end, and everything is done and ready to go.
Yay, party. That's
Success.
Fantastic. Yep, mine is still going through the process. Hoping that those who have been watching this along with us, I can see lots of people clapping. That's great. I'm hoping that you've also experienced, if you've been following along, a great migration as well for your device. So again, the most important thing is it's not scary, Matt. I mean, this isn't scary. This is a really, really great way to prepare your customers. Use this recording again. We will share this recording with you. It'll be put on the YouTube Tech Talk channel, and it'll help you go through the motions of getting your customers prepared. So the best part is you could get ahead of the game, create that enrollment profile, do the configuration profiles, definitely do those compliance and conditional access profiles ahead of the game, and then when it comes to the stage when the customers are looking to migrate, then you know for sure that they are ready to go. A simple process of updating it. Share the link for the Teams Rooms Tech Talk channel. Absolutely, I will share that in the chat just now. Where are we? YouTube. All right.
There's an older version of me walking through this on the Tech Talk too, but this has a full demo, so I like this one.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. This
awesome.
one's got the demo. This is the one you want to watch.
Yeah.
Not old Matt's old. This
That's
is new
old
Matt.
map from quite a while ago, so I like this.
We've had a few updates since then, and also I think the
Yes.
process is a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more user friendly for administrators. So yeah. And the best part is, Matt, usually our masterclasses go right up to that 2 hour point. So you've been able to rally this one together and bring it in early. Just going back through the chat, just making sure that we haven't missed anyone's questions.
And that's awesome, though, because that means that this is even easier than some of the other concepts that you've taught before. And this is huge migration that folks have to go through and that all Teams devices are going to have to go through. We wanted to make this as easy and simple as possible, so I'm actually excited we made it through it faster. And I did a full firmware update of a device live during it too. Like, that's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I was going to say both my touch console and the front of room display have just finished. So again, for us to do firmware updates, as you know, Matt, we've done this before on the Windows side of things, and it's taken a lot longer for things to actually propagate. Windows autopilot and so on. So for a demo like this to go so successful, thank you so much for your time today. Again, thank you to the partners for showing up and giving us their time, and I'm hoping that this was valuable for you. And we're looking forward to seeing you all in the next masterclass. Now, before you go, I want to share with you what the next masterclass is all about. Because the next one is a very interesting topic. The next one is going to be on the 29th of April. And we're going to be, I think that's after Easter, which is good. It's not letting me put the slide in the chat. There we go. It's going to be on the 29th of April, and we're going to be talking about intelligent audio again, because intelligent audio is coming to Android. It's all happening on Android at the moment. So intelligent audio will be coming to Android, and I'll have Christian Schatt, who obviously has been working tirelessly behind the scenes on this feature. We've had him on here before with Kyle Spees. And he's going to be coming back again to talking a little bit more about what it means to enable and how to set it up, and for intelligent audio on Teams Rooms on Android, providing that we don't have any delays, fingers crossed. But the other thing we're also going to talk about is Copilot agents. So we've been getting so many questions about facilitator in Teams Rooms. Eventually, interpreter will make its way to Teams Rooms, but that's probably the second half of this year, much potentially. It's so far in the future, but what we want to do is help you understand the role that intelligent speaker plays with Teams Rooms on Android, as well as also facilitator, and also give you another bit more insights into how interpreter is coming together. For those who saw the Enterprise Connect, where Ilya did a live demonstration of interpreter from German to English, it was pretty awesome, I think it's going to have a huge impact for the future of meetings. So we'll get the product team to talk about Copilot agents. Christian Schatt again back to talk about intelligent audio. So this is definitely a masterclass you don't want to miss.
That one will be awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing that across all our devices too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, team, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll give you some time back. You've got about 20 minutes back in your calendar. So thanks for attending. I will share the recording and the slides, and we'll see you in the next masterclass. Thank you again.
Cheers all.